Imagine waking up as the wealthiest, most respected person in your entire region. By sunset, you've lost everything: your children, your fortune, your health. Even your own wife tells you to curse God and die. This isn't fiction. This is the story of Job, a man whose name has become synonymous with suffering itself. But here's what most people don't know about his story. And trust me, you'll want to hear this until the end, because the twist will change how you see suffering forever. Let me paint you a picture of Job before everything fell apart. The year is approximately 2000 BC, somewhere in the land of Uz, likely in modern-day Arabia or Edom. Job isn't just wealthy, he's extraordinarily wealthy. 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, and a household staff so large he's considered the greatest man in all the East. But here's what made Job truly remarkable. It wasn't his wealth. The ancient text describes him as blameless and upright, a man who feared God and shunned evil. In a world of corruption, he stood out like a lighthouse in a storm. Job had 7 sons and 3 daughters. Picture this: his children would take turns hosting feasts at each other's homes, and Job would rise early in the morning to offer burnt offerings for each of them, thinking, perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. This was a man who took his faith seriously, a man who had everything, a man who seemed untouchable. But hold on, because what happens next reveals something absolutely shocking about how the universe works. Here's where the story takes a disturbing turn that most people don't realize when they hear about Job. This wasn't random suffering. This was a cosmic test, and Job had no idea he was the subject of it. The Bible pulls back the curtain and shows us something we're not usually allowed to see: a conversation in the heavenly realm. The angels present themselves before God, and among them is Satan, literally the adversary. God points to Job. "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him." Satan's response: chilling. Does Job fear God for nothing? Haven't you put a hedge of protection around him? You've blessed everything he does, but stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. Think about this for a moment. Satan is essentially saying that Job's faith is transactional, that he only loves God because life is good. Remove the blessings and the faith crumbles. God accepts the challenge. Very well, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself, do not lay a finger. And here's what's terrifying. Job has no idea this conversation just happened. He's about to lose everything and he doesn't know why. What happens next is so rapid, so devastating, that it's hard to comprehend. Imagine receiving 4 messengers in a row, each bringing news worse than the last. Messenger 1 arrives, breathless. "The Sabaeans attacked. They carried off your oxen and donkeys and put your servants to the sword. I'm the only one who escaped." While he's still speaking, Messenger 2 runs in. "The fire of God fell from the sky and burned up the sheep and the servants. I'm the only one who escaped." Before Job can process this, Messenger 3. "The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and carried them off. They put your servants to the sword. I'm the only one who escaped." And then the knockout blow. Messenger 4 arrives, and you can see the horror in his eyes. "Your sons and daughters were feasting in their oldest brother's home when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert. It struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them. They're all dead. I'm the only one who escaped to tell you." Let that sink in. In one day, Job lost all 10 of his children, his entire fortune, and his livelihood. How does he respond? Job stands up. He tears his robe. He shaves his head, signs of deep mourning. And then he falls to the ground in worship and says these stunning words: "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." But wait, Satan isn't done yet, and what comes next is even worse. Satan goes back to God and says, "Skin for skin. A man will give all he has for his own life, but stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face." God allows it, and Job's nightmare is about to become physical. Job is afflicted with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Scholars believe this was a form of severe skin disease, possibly elephantiasis, or a horrific form of leprosy. Picture this: Job, once the wealthiest man in the region, now sitting among the ashes, scraping his sores with broken pottery. His appearance is so disfigured that later, when his friends come to visit, they don't even recognize him at first. His wife, the only family he has left, looks at him and says, "Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die." Even his closest companion has given up. But Job's response? "You are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" Then his 3 friends arrive, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. They sit with him in silence for 7 days and 7 nights because they see how great his suffering is. And here's where the story takes a fascinating psychological turn that reveals something profound about human nature. You'd think friends would bring comfort. Instead, they bring something far worse: judgment disguised as theology. For the next several chapters, Job's friends essentially tell him the same thing over and over. You must have done something wrong. God doesn't punish innocent people. This suffering is your fault. This is the ancient prosperity gospel in reverse. They believe in a simple equation: righteousness equals blessing, sin equals suffering. Therefore, suffering must mean sin. Eliphaz says, "Who, being innocent, has ever perished? Where were the upright ever destroyed?" Bildad adds, "If you were pure and upright, surely he would rouse himself on your behalf." Zophar concludes, "Know this, God has even forgotten some of your sin." Imagine that. You've lost everything, you're in physical agony, and your friends are telling you that you deserve it, that you're actually getting off easy. Job pushes back. He knows he's not perfect, but he also knows he hasn't done anything to deserve this level of suffering. He demands an audience with God. He wants answers. The debate goes in circles. Job cries out in anguish, "My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and they come to an end without hope." Even if I summoned him and he responded, I do not believe he would give me a hearing. I have no peace, no quietness, I have no rest, but only turmoil. He's honest about his pain. He questions, he wrestles, but notice what he doesn't do. He doesn't curse God. Despite everything, despite the agony, despite the accusations from his friends, Job holds on. But then something unexpected happens that changes everything. After all the human arguing, after all the theological debates, God himself shows up, and what he says will blow your mind. Out of a storm, God speaks. But he doesn't answer Job's questions. Instead, he asks his own. "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Have you ever given orders to the morning or shown the dawn its place? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions?" For 4 chapters, God takes Job on a tour of creation. He speaks of the sea, the snow, the lightning, the constellations, the behavior of animals. It's a cosmic perspective shift. God isn't saying Job's questions are invalid. He's saying something more profound. The universe is infinitely more complex than human understanding can grasp. Suffering isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's beyond our comprehension. Job's response is humble. "I am unworthy. How can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth." Then God speaks again, more questions about his power and wisdom, and Job finally says, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes." This isn't Job admitting he was wrong to question. It's Job acknowledging that he's encountered something, someone far greater than his suffering. Here's the twist that changes everything. God turns to Job's 3 friends and says, "I am angry with you because you have not spoken the truth about me as my servant Job has." Wait, Job, who questioned and complained and demanded answers, spoke the truth. And the friends, with their tidy theological explanations, didn't. Apparently, honest struggle is more truthful than false certainty. God tells them to make sacrifices and have Job pray for them. "I will accept his prayer and not deal with you according to your folly." Then comes the restoration. God gives Job twice as much as he had before. 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, 1,000 donkeys. He has 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. The text even names the daughters, Jemimah, Keziah, and Keren-Happuch, describing them as the most beautiful women in all the land. Job lives 140 more years and sees 4 generations of his descendants. So what's the point of Job's story? It's not a simple moral tale about patience. It's something far more profound. Job teaches us that suffering isn't always deserved, that faith can include doubt and questions, that God is big enough to handle our honesty, that sometimes we won't get answers, but we might get something better, a deeper encounter with the divine. The name Job might mean persecuted one, or possibly where is the Father, both fitting for his story. For thousands of years, people facing unexplainable suffering have turned to Job's story. Not because it gives easy answers, but because it validates the struggle. Because it shows a man who lost everything but found something eternal. The man called Job reminds us sometimes the question isn't why is this happening, but who will I become through this? And that's a question worth wrestling with. If this story challenged how you think about suffering and faith, hit that like button. Subscribe for more deep dives into ancient stories that still matter today. And drop a comment. Have you ever faced a Job moment in your life? How did you get through it?
See you in the next one.